Now, in some instances, we want to compare the interest rates of two different banks, but it can become a little bit difficult to determine which one's the best deal when their compounding periods are different. So here we have an example where Bank A offers an 8% per annum interest rate, but it's compounded quarterly, and then Bank B has a 7.2% interest rate per annum, but it's compounded monthly. So if we had to choose which bank's interest rate we want, it would be difficult to determine which one's better because of the different compounding periods. However, what we can do is we can use a technique called annualizing an interest rate to make a fair comparison between the two. So I'll just go through a quick example of how we can annualize a rate, and then I'll go back to that example. So you'll remember from our compounding interest formula from our last video, it looked like this. Now, we call this part of the formula the multiplier. Now, that part of the formula is going to be useful for annualizing an interest rate. So here I have 6.8% per annum, and it's compounded quarterly. So I want to work out what the annualized interest rate is for that example. So what I'm going to use is this multiplier here. I've got, firstly, my I is 6.8%, which is 0.068. My K is the number of times it is compounded yearly. So since it's quarterly, that means it's compounded 4 times. And my N in this situation is just going to be over 1 year. So N is equal to 1. So what I can do is my annual interest multiplier will be given by, so my annual interest is going to be given by 1 plus, now I over K, so my I is 0.068 over K is the number of times it's compounded per year, which is 4, to the power of K times N, which is 4 times 1, which is going to give me, and I'll just get my calculator, $1.06975. So if I want to know what my annual interest rate is, these decimals are going to be the important part. So 0.0697 is 6.975%. So therefore, annual interest rate is equal to 6.975%. So that's an example of how to annualize an interest rate. So now, if we go back to our first example where we're looking at the two different banks, so we've got Bank A, who is offering 8% per annum but quarterly. So Bank A offers 8% per annum with quarterly. Monthly, I'll just double check that, it's compounded quarterly. And then we have Bank B, which is offering 7.2% per annum but compounded monthly. 7.2% per annum, and that is compounded monthly. So we want to determine which of those two would be a better loan to apply for. So again, we're going to use this same method that we were using before. How you'll notice that they use this multiplier. So we have 1 plus I over k to the power of k. And our n is always going to be 1 because we're just trying to work out what it is over 1 year. So I in this instant is 8%, which is 0.08, and my k, since it compounds quarterly, is going to be 4, so that means that it compounds 4 times in a year. So therefore, we have 1 plus I is 0.08 over 4 to the power of 4, which gives us 1.0824. Now again, this is the important bit, so the annual, therefore annual interest equals 8.243%. So now let's do the same thing but for Bank B, where the interest is compounded monthly. So our interest rate is 0.072. Our K, since it compounds monthly, 12 times in a year is going to be 12. So therefore, again, let's use this multiplier. 1 plus 0.072 over 12 to the power of 12. Again, in all of these instances, the n is just 1, so that's why I'm not going to bother writing times 1. So this gives us 0.072. 1.07442. So therefore, the annual interest rate is equal to, these are the important values, 7.442%. So now we can make a comparison between the two, since we know what the annual interest, if we were to annualize the interest rates, we're getting a better rate with Bank A. So if you had to choose between the two, you would prefer to choose Bank A because it's going to produce more interest. Now we can do this annualizing of an interest rate using the graphics calculator also. So I'll just give a quick demo on how to do that. So again, in the mode TVM, now you'll come to this screen here. Now the selection that we want this time is CNVT, so it's F5, and N is the number of compounding periods per year, and then I is the interest rate. So for example, with Bank A, it was compounding quarterly, so the number of compounding periods per year was 4, and then our interest rate was 8%. So then if we want to annualize that value, it comes out as 8.243, and if you compare that to what we got, we also got 8.243. So that's a useful technique to compare interest rates when we have different compounding periods.